Check out the description below this video for more info about the tools and parts for this project. Click on the Show More button for a list of products and get all the specifications by following the links below. Hey guys, I'm going to do a little review today about the Dewalt E7480 table saw, which is right behind me here. This is my first table saw and I can't say enough good things about it. When I was shopping around for a table saw, first of all, I took like weeks and weeks to choose one. I was looking around for used ones, and then I was really concerned about the safety issue. The table saw, I knew from the start, is like the most dangerous tool in a workshop, garage, or wood shop. So the safety features was one of my primary concerns, but when I discovered this one, the overall features above and beyond safety were really what got me set on this one. I was initially looking at the Bosch Reacts, but it's just in a whole nother price range that I can't afford right now, and really can't validate because I don't really do that much cutting. I do little projects around the house, certain renovations and building projects, but I'm not a contractor, so I can't really validate spending that much on a saw, although I would really love to have that safety feature of the blade stopping on contact with a finger. But the safety features on this saw are good enough and really good and meet my needs. Now that I've been using it for a couple of months now, I think I've had it for 2 months, and I've done a couple of projects with it, so I can't say enough good things about it. I've tried it, I've tested it, and it's a great saw. So let me show you a couple of things about it, and you can decide for yourself if it's the saw for you. Okay, so what I want to show you first is the rack and pinion telescoping fence rails that make the fence adjustment really fast, smooth, and accurate. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how the mechanism works. Now you're looking at the back of the fence, and this is one of the only saws that has this. It's a rack and pinion mechanism. So you have the pinion and the rack on both sides of the fence. So that means that both sides will be moving evenly. There's no like measuring and seeing if your fence is aligned. This one feature was what sold me on this saw. And I went to the hardware store and I was just looking around at some really expensive big table saws, and you can, if you have one of those fences that you just push it with your hand, you can clamp it down and it can be totally uneven, and you can just ruin your whole cut. If you're cutting expensive pieces of wood, this can totally ruin your day, and always have to be constantly measuring and seeing if your fence is aligned. I mean, that would just ruin it for me. I'm not a really experienced carpenter or anything, so I really need to have something that I can set it and forget it. And with this thing, you just have to set your distance, cutting distance, and clamp it down, and you're good to go. Okay, so I've just discovered something really amazing about this fence, actually. So I'm out to 24 inches here. You can see I'm just at 24, just a bit after 24 inches. So when you're at this length, you want to have some support under your piece of plywood. If you're ripping really wide piece of plywood and you're using the full length of 24 inches, I'm just going to get a piece of wood on here. So just imagine this is plywood. So you see that's at the same level, right? And what you can do with this fence, this is pretty awesome, I just discovered this, it's going to make my life a whole lot easier, is that you have 2 levels on this little support / extension. And so I've just moved it up a notch. I'm going to move the whole fence back to here. And I've got another level for another fence, like a lower fence, so that I can do other types of cuts here. Like say I was cutting this. I've got another way to keep it centered on the blade, or another way to get it so that it cuts nicely with a nice straight cut. So that's a really cool thing. Oh, I forgot to clamp it down there. About the fence. And so once you want to take it off, say you're cutting, you're using this, I think it's called the miter gauge. I'm not quite sure, but all you have to do is unclip it here, and you got storage. You just put this thing back up here, flip it on the other side, and just store it right there. That's what I like about this saw. It's got like onboard storage. Okay, so let's say I'm cutting a really narrow piece of wood. I'm just doing like a little scenario demonstration here. So I'm cutting along like this, and I'm just ripping a little, like 1/8 of an inch of it off of it, just for example. When I get here, first of all, I've got the amazing protection of this this blade cover here, which is in 2 parts. Plus, it's got this steel part here, and in the back, it's got an anti-kickback claw. So if I try to push this forward, I can't even push it. It's stuck there. The claw really bites onto it, so it's not going to shoot it out towards me. And kickbacks are another really really important safety concern on these saws. And once I get here, I got a clip for a push stick that's included. I just unclip it, and while the saw is working, while the saw is on, I just take it out, push it the rest of the way, and then clip my push stick right back where it was for it to be ready for my next cut, shut it down, and there I've got my cut. So as you might have noticed, I'm a pretty safety oriented guy, and this blade cover is a really great feature about this saw. And particularly when you're doing really small cuts like 1/8 of an inch. I'm set to 1/8 of an inch there, and what you can do is look at how close that blade is to the fence. So you're going to be ripping a really small sliver of wood. You can have this cover on this side would be protecting your hand from going in there. Plus you don't have to take it off. You have this part that's sitting on there, so nothing can get in there. And you have the claw for the anti-kickback mechanism, and you just have to lift it up and slip it over. It just rests on the fence here, and you have the other half of it, which is on this side. So I really like this this safety mechanism here. And you can even take this whole assembly off with one hand. Just unclip this. I've actually got to move the fence out of the way. So, make sure I'm move this out of the way. And all you do, move it back, slip it out of the little notch, and there you go. That's if you have like some type of wood that's where you can't use the safety cage. But in most cases, I've never really had to take it off. And to slip it back on, so I can do this with one hand. Put it there, and there you go. You can also rest these in the up position. That's for when you're measuring, setting up your cut. And once you're ready, just drop it down, and you got full protection against your hands going into the blade. So another really cool feature about this saw, in conjunction with the guard mechanism or the guard assembly, is how it responds to angled cuts. So it still gives really good protection even if your blade is angled. I'm going to set it to the 45-degree angle now, and you'll see how it changes, or it adapts to the angle. So just release my lever here up to 45, clamp it back down, and you can see how this side of the cover stays really close to the blade, so I don't have any danger of my hands going into there. And this side is it just totally adapts to the angle of the blade. It's a really innovative design. I love it.
So another thing I like about this saw is just like the robust build quality. It's got some plastic on it, obviously, which makes it really light, but it's also got this really nice roll cage. So it's just like so tough looking. I mean, I'm not a contractor. I don't like throw it in the back of trucks every day, but it just looks like portable. You know, it's not a plastic base. It's got a really good. It's really sturdy because it has these rubber feet, and on the back, it's got these adjustable posts on both sides, so you can level it to any like relatively flat surface, and it's going to give you a really steady cutting. So here's a look at the motor. The motor is a 4800 RPM 15 amp motor. It quickly rips through hardwoods with ease. So you got a really powerful machine there. It's not like a shop table saw with like a what do you call it? Like a strap and a belt to the motor. So it's a direct drive, and these are typically not as strong as like the big, huge shop table saws. But like if you're someone like me that just likes to set up and real quick and do little jobs, this is like more than enough you need. I mean, 15 amp motor, that's like, it's really more than enough. So there's a good look at the motor. So you got a really good dust port here. It's made for a 2.5 inch size tube. Mine is a 1 7/8, so I just kind of have this string holding it up. It's not a really good setup. Eventually I'm going to try to find an adapter for this. So if you have like a 1 7/8 vacuum cleaner, a shop vac, it doesn't fit in there. And the 1/4, I believe you can get a 2.5 to 1/4 adapter for 1/4 inch shop vac, but the best is just to have the 2.5 inch. So here's a look at the underside of the saw. I like this saw because everything's really accessible. You can see all the movement going on. There's the rack and pinion mechanism for the fence. And so if you need adjusting, all these things are really have set screws, so you can adjust all these things. All the sawdust goes into here and goes straight into your shop vac if you have one. So that makes for a really light construction, but it's really strong as well because it has this roll cage. It's kind of built like a race car. So with the saw you get a 24 tooth carbide blade, and it says it enhances the cut quality and prolongs blade life. I don't have any complaints about that. I mean, it's a really good blade. I don't really know that much about saw blades, but I know if you have smaller teeth in your saw blade, it's more for finishing wood, and this is more for ripping and cutting 2x4s and 2x6s and things like that. So if you're doing like more rough work, just stick with like the stock blade, or if you're doing finishing, you need a blade which has like finer tooth setting or a finer tooth pattern. And we'd also like to note that this blade is a 10-inch blade. So continuing on with the motor, it's a 4800 RPM 15 amps, so that's a pretty big load on your electrical circuit. So you have to think about, if you get this saw, you have to think about extending the life or really making sure this thing lasts as long as possible. And there's no reason why it should fail on you, but there are things that you do that could reduce the life of your saw, and that includes using extension cord that's not made for it. So as soon as I got this one, I work in the heating and cooling field, so I really know about electrical cables and how much amperage you can run through which gauge of wire. So the recommended, like the minimum recommended wire gauge size for this is 14. So this is a 12 gauge cable actually. It's a really sturdy cable, and it's got see, it's got a pilot light there, so it shows you that it's on. It's got 3 plugs in it, and you can see that the cable for the saw is a really sturdy cable. So as long as you have a 14 gauge extension cord, you're safe with this. This is a 12 because sometimes I run a vacuum cleaner, a shop vac, and which I don't know how much amps it is, but it's a 5.5 horsepower, and the table saw, which is 15 amps. So all that, like, this cable can handle it, but if you're running that through a 16 gauge wire, you're gonna have more resistance. So your elements, the wire's gonna heat up, and the motor is gonna heat up. So that shortens the life of the motor. So just a couple of things to think about. If you get this saw, you really need a 14 gauge at least extension cord, if not a 12 gauge extension cord. So if you're not sure which gauge that your extension cord is, usually typically on the side it's written, there's some information about the different loads that the extension cord is produced for. So you can see that this one is 12 AWG, so that means it's a 12 gauge wire. So you can either use 14, if not, if you have the chance to get a 12 gauge, that's even better. But a 14 would be good for this this saw. Definitely don't use a 16 gauge cable. I'll have some links below to different extension cords, 12 gauges and 14 gauges that are suitable for this table saw. So as you can see under this table saw, you're looking at the back of the table saw now, and all the components are metal. So this is a really good feature about this saw. Some of the skill saws, some of the cheaper saws don't have the metal components. So with this one, you can be rest assured that I'm just lowering the blade now, actually, just to show you what goes on inside. With these components, they just require just a bit of greasing every now and then, and that's about it. But some of these table saws, the cheaper ones, are going to have like plastic parts, like the plastic pinions, and that stuff, it works well for a while, but it just ends up wearing out. So this isn't the cheapest saw on the market, but you can rest assured that the components are quality, like the build quality is really excellent. Alright, I'm just going to do a little demo for you here, and if you have a table saw, be sure to wear your hearing protection. These things are really super loud. Make sure you have these on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be ripping a piece of 2x6, it's a pretty beefy piece of wood, and I'm going to show you how to set this up. So I'm on this little knob, this screw here, which is it means the yellow tape measure. I set it to 2 inches. Clamp it down. Got that in place. I'm going to turn on my vacuum cleaner. Stop that. Turn off the top. Alright, so I'm going to show you how I usually set this up to cut a really small sliver of a piece off a 1x6. This is actually a 1 inch thick, so I'm going to show you how I set that up. So first I move my fence over. Just going to pick up my anti-kickback claw here, set that up to 1/8 of an inch, lock it down, lower the guard down, lower this half down. I got my push knife there, and stop back. Alright, now I'm going to rip a piece of plywood to 24 inches, which is the maximum capacity for this saw. I'm going to set this up here. First thing I do is pick up this fence, put it on the maximum screw setting, which is the second screw here. Now I'm on the white tape measure. Move this all the way out to 24 inches. Okay, lock it down, and then move this support. This supports the wood when you got a really long space here. I plywood. This is a really ugly piece of wood, but just for demonstration's sake. Then got my guard down. Turn the shop vac on. And there you go. Nice straight cut. Totally straight. I knew when, that's the great thing about this rack and pinion system, is that you set it, you just set it and forget it. That's, it may sound cliche, but you know that once you're advancing this wheel on the one side, the other side is exactly the same. They just move hand in hand with each other. That's just the winning feature about this saw. Alright, so now I'm going to do an angled cut with the miter gauge. I hope it's called the miter gauge. I think that's what it's called. So let me just get it just behind here. This thing, this is the one thing I would say that it could be a little better build quality. It's plastic and the numbers are kind of hard to see because they're just black on black, but if your lighting's good and it's set up properly, I think it's as good as any miter gauge. But there are higher end ones that you can get for the saw, and this slot is standard, so you can just fit a higher end one into the slot if you really need it. But this is perfect. It's got an adjustment needle there, so you can square it up with your squaring tool and see if it's precise. So there I'm at 90 degrees. Let's just see if that's good. Stick that in there. And all you have to do with this saw, let me just give you a better angle there. All you need to do is just hold this lever, move the saw up to 45. And it's quick as that. There's no rolling or anything like that. It's just a really great system. Let me do it on this side. So, like that, set up like that. I always just move the wood just to see if everything's really in line and tune before I start to do anything. The other thing that's good about this saw is the surface. The surface is nice and smooth, and it's the wood slides really well on it. That's one of the good feature about this saw. So now everything's set up. Got a nice 45 degree cut. So I just wanted to show you guys how compact and light this table saw is. So I'm just gonna grab it right now. It's got some handles here on the side that makes it really convenient for carrying around, and it's light. Like, it's sturdy. It feels sturdy, but it's still light. Like, I can still carry it with like one hand. I don't have anything bad to say about it. The only thing would be the miter gauge. The miter gauge is my only complaint, and hey, if I win the lottery one day, maybe I can buy that Bosch Reax. But for now, I'm really thrilled with this one. I'm happy I didn't get an old used saw with no guard. I'm really happy I made the choice. And even the guards have evolved in the last couple of years. I mean, they didn't even have these double these guards with two sections in them until a couple of years ago, and this one is just like it just adapts to any angle, any piece of wood. I mean, it's really in a very, very rare situation you'd have to take it off, but
For safety, I'm really happy with this saw. The power is great, but yeah, other than that, if you've got a good extension cord, 14 gauge or 12 gauge, and your voltage is good in your house, you shouldn't have a problem with it, and it should last a really long time. So thanks for watching, and have a good day, and see you on the next one.
Check out the description below this video for more info about the tools and parts for this project. Click on the Show More button for a list of products and get all the specifications by following the links below.